podcast dedicated to exposing wrongful convictions and demanding justice reform in America's criminal legal system. I'm Rebecca, your host. Tonight, we're focusing on the case of Scott Barmore, a man who turned himself in without legal counsel, maintains his innocence on these new charges, and is already serving a sentence of 60 years to life. But before we begin, I want to give a heartfelt thank you to our sponsor, Veteran Alliance, for supporting all of this work that we do, and to JP Verse of Versefire Records for our intro and outro music. You guys are truly appreciated. So here's what you need to know going in. Scott accepted responsibility for his original robbery charges years ago. While on parole, he was later accused of 3 additional robberies. Allegations he vehemently denies. A warrant was issued based on no evidence, and Scott presented himself to the police without an attorney. He was ultimately sentenced to 60 years to life. No evidence, no real trial, just convicted. Scott has appealed to the Missouri Supreme Court, arguing that he was convicted on the new allegations without even having an evidentiary hearing. There's also a disputed state claim that he failed to finish high school, despite all records indicating he had already graduated at the time of the original offense. Could this be a case of mistaken identity? And honestly, what does graduating high school have to do with whether or not he committed a crime? See, I thought it was innocent until proven guilty. So with that context, you're about to hear Scott's story in his own words. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Wickedly Judged. I have Scott Barmore on the line. He has been sitting in prison for a while now, was sentenced 60 years to life for 3 robberies that he did not commit. Hey Scott, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. So tell us, how did all of this happen? Like, I've read your story, and I know that you pled guilty to 2, and you were out on parole, or probation, parole. Yeah, parole. And then all of a sudden, you're looking at 60 to life. How did that happen?
So when I was 18 years old, I did rob 2 people, right? And I was caught almost immediately. I was alone, I was by myself, and I confessed. And I ended up getting, I guess because of my age, and I had never been in trouble as an adult, I got the judge sentenced me to 150 hours community service, 90 days work release, 5 years intensive supervision for probation. And so that's how how I got my time on my first sentence. But I had a 10 and a 5-year backup going for my probation. And so that's initially what happened on my first incarceration, into jail. And then, so I got out. I started working at AT&T. I went to ICI Real Estate School, graduated from that. And I actually, when I was incarcerated, when I got locked up this time, I was actually still working at AT&T. So all of this mostly happened in one night. Mostly with my girlfriend at the time. And this was sometime in 1999, maybe like November of 99, and we had gotten into an argument. And it was just a verbal argument. But, then And it was wild, though. Then I left. She said the apartment complex. I left the apartment complex, but the police were called. They came to her apartment. I was not there. And they ended up arresting her because she had a warrant for forgery charges. And while she was in custody of the police, somehow, I guess, through her describing my features, what I look like, and then looking me up and seeing I had priors in my mind, right? They started asking her questions about some robberies that they had no suspect for. And it was multiple, there was probably about 6 or 7 altogether. Robberies that they had asked her about. So they started asking her questions, showing her photos, showing the videos, and initially, he was believed that she had a statement saying that I was a person who looked like the one who was in the video, the guy who was in a video of a one-stop liquor store, and so she supposedly had written a statement on it. And so the police put a warrant out for my arrest. Probably a couple days later, I called my dad. My dad told me that there were a bunch of police officers at his house. They were looking for me. So, initially I'm like thinking that because of the disturbance, domestic disturbance, that I would probably get into some type of, I would violate my probation because if the police are called and you on probation, you can end up going to jail, prison, whatever. So out of fear, I just took off. I ran, I left, and went to another state. And I stayed gone for about a month until I was like, man, I'm going to go ahead and turn myself into probation and parole office and do my little 10 and 5 years of the backup that I had for violating my probation. So I ended up January 11, 2000. I went to the probation and parole office and turned myself into them. To my behest, I found out that it wasn't just a probation violation for a domestic call. I was being charged with multiple counts of robbery. Police began to interrogate me, ask me a bunch of questions. Did I do these crimes? Do I know anything about them? They probably talked to me for about, maybe about 2-3 hours, something like that. Nothing recorded.
This call is from a correctional facility and may be monitored and recorded.
Yeah, I'm recorded now. But at the time, there was no visual recording. There was no audio recording of this interrogation. So anyway, I ended up telling them that I want a lawyer. I'm done talking because I'll keep asking me the same questions over and over again. So I ended up getting, the next day, they told me I was forced to show up for a physical lineup. So with no lawyer present, I went in front of a lineup. I had a lineup of 5 of us all together. And so I was placed in number 2. And so they gave all of us cards to read. They said that the robber had said, here's the robber said this, read this. Right? So the first guy reads, and he said something like, give me the money. So I'm like, okay, got a little bit of an accent, And so I'm number 2, so I'm the only thing I say the same thing, give me the money. The next guy, I'm giving the money, $2 o'clock, $14. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what? I sound like the first guy. And then the third guy, the 4th guy, and then the 5th guy, right? And all of them sounded like they were Jamaicans. So I'm like, man, I'm in the lineup full of Jamaicans. So the person who got robbed must have got robbed by a Jamaican guy. I know, I'm like, oh, this is crazy. They got me in the Jamaican lineup. So I stayed in number 2 for the entire time. They had us put ski masks on, read multiple different types of statements, all of this. So what I didn't know was there was multiple people behind the scene that were watching, right, on the other side of the mirror, that were watching the lineup. And so there was probably about 7 of them, I think, people who were victimized by someone robbed them. Yeah. So, but like I said, I was number 2 the entire time. So one victim would come and see me, and then they would get led to the back. where all the other victims were. And then another victim will come, right, and see us. So anyway, what I ended up finding out when I got my police reports was that the person who got robbed, the people who got robbed, they described the robber as an African-American slang. So, I had to think back to my lineup, and I'm like, wait a minute, everybody in my lineup was foreign, right? They all had thick accents, not just a little bit, like they were like straight, probably just left the island maybe a month ago, like that thick. And so in my lineup, I was the only person who was African-American. When the person who robbed those people was an African-American, and I'm the only one there. Like, it was obvious, even in trial later, two of the victims said, we eliminated 2 or 3 guys right out the gate because of their accents were so big. So, anyway, I also found out later that how they got those foreign exchange students, because that's what they were. So, the police detectives who worked on my case went to Lakewood University in St. Charles, Missouri, where the dean of students at that time was a former police detective of the same department of the men who were investigating my case. So they basically went to their old comrade or their old, co-worker, whatever, right?
Right.
And told him, hey, we need people for a lineup. So he cleverly goes and gets 4 foreign exchange students from the island of St. Kitts. That's where these men were from. 4.
Gosh.
Right? And so that's how I was put in the lineup with those guys. Okay, so...
Now let me ask you this. When they were doing the lineup, and you said they were bringing people in and they were going to the back, were all of those people in there while they were identifying? Or did they bring them in one at a time?
Yeah, so that's what's interesting too, right? They were not all in the viewing room at the same time. However, they were in the waiting room by themselves, no supervision from police officers, detectives, no one was there. So I remained as number 2, like in the lineup. So let's say if the first person comes and views the lineup, and he or she looks and says, oh yeah, number 2 is the person who robbed me. That's the American who robbed me, right? So they're going to go back to the waiting room, and they're going to know, like, yeah, number 2 got me. So even more so am I being narrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be chosen out of this lineup. And so yeah, that's another thing they did. So the next day, another detective was investigating a robbery case where it was a man pizza delivery guy. Oh, so I meant to tell you, out of those 6 or 7 people who viewed the lineup, I was chosen by 2 people chose me as being the robber. I'm not sure if they picked anyone else at all. I just know I was chosen by 2 people. Right? So they ended up reading 2 first-degree robbery indictments later on that day. So the next day, there was another lineup, but this lineup was a photo lineup. Now, the detective in this case chose to use 6 photos for his lineup, where the victim in this case said the person that robbed him was between the heights of 6'2" and 6'4".
And how tall are you?
I am 6'4".
Okay.
And the tallest person out of the other 5 men who were in the lineup, the tallest one was 5'6". So there was a 5'6", 2 5'3", a 5'4", and a 5'2". And the only reason that I know this is because in my police report, all of their identifying information was shown. All right.
Wow.
So I'm wondering, how was the line of view? Was the line of view by this man? Because surely they had to put some effort into finding all these short black men.
Right.
Like any meeny mighty moe does not find all of these. And so there's no excuse saying, oh, we can have enough black men in our pictures. As they try to use the excuse that it was hard to find black men that fit my description or the description of the robber in St. Charles at the time for this lineup. Surely they couldn't say that with the photo lineup, because they could put anybody in the photo lineup.
Right.
But they did. They found black men under 5'6". So I was inevitably chosen again as being the robber of this pizza delivery man. So with no other evidence, I went to trial. Oh, well, there was some other evidence. They ended up placing a warrant for. They ended up having a search and seizure for my dad's house, whom I did not live with at the time. But they searched my father's house, and I had some belongings that were in his basement. And I just had a box. I had like 3 boxes. I had good clothes. Alright, so they got a hoodie out of there, and it was just a regular gray hoodie with a big old red FB on the front with some boo-boo. And I don't know why they got that. No one described a hoodie with a big old red boo-boo on it in any case, but they took that. But one person did describe the robber as having a hoodie, right? Because he said nothing about this big old red FB that was like super big on the front, like a Flavor Flav clock. It was like that big. So they also found a gun that was nowhere near my stuff. It was in a completely different room in my father's house. They found one of my father's guns, and they used it as evidence. This gun was in a house fire that my little brother had burnt up one of their houses, and the gun was in the house fire. I don't know why my dad kept that gun, but he did. He kept it, and they ended up using that gun in my trial as being the weapon used in the pizza delivery robbery. Now, when they went and fingerprinted this gun, it had one person's fingerprint on it. It wasn't mine or my dad, so anyone else that lived in the house, it was of the police detective. Right? So I'm like, your fingerprint is on this, so, I'm like, what did you do? It's like, she used this as the weapon of choice for the robber, then maybe you did it. So, I don't know. But they did use that. So that was it. The only evidence was the statement from my former girlfriend. And in trial, she never showed up, right? But they kindly used her statement. What they did was they said that we placed this lady under arrest, and we asked her about Scott and these robberies, and then we placed a warrant out for Scott's arrest. So they didn't use her statement because she refused to show up in court, but they used her statement like insinuating like she said that I was the person who robbed. So years later, she ended up hiring an investigator to talk to her to find out what tactics were used against her. And she ended up signing an affidavit, 6-page affidavit, saying that she was coerced by the police. That part of her statement was not even hers. She didn't write part of it. She said that she was promised to not have to do the jail time, that they were threatening her to take her car from her, to take her child from her, and on and on. And I probably got that affidavit a few years ago from her. So I ended up going to trial. My trial was, I had 2 trials. The 2 robberies with the voice identification were together, and then the 1 robbery with the pizza delivery person was separate. Excuse me. My first trial, I had, wasn't a jury of my peers. I had 13 white middle class people in my first trial. I got found guilty. I was given 30 years. My second trial was exactly similar to the first one. It was a one-day trial. I shouldn't even say one day. It was like a few hours. All white jury, middle class, got found guilty. Judge sentenced me to another 30 years consecutive. Right? So I ended up getting 3 30-year sentences, 2 30s running together, and 1 running consecutive. So it's as if I have 60 years. Currently, as of now, my first parole date is 2049. In a nutshell, that's what it is. I mean, there's a lot of the nuances involved in the case, but that's pretty much how I came there.
We'll pick up next week with the rest of this interview with Scott Barmore, because there's more to his story that you definitely need to hear. If Scott's story has moved you at all so far, here's how you can help. Share this episode to bring more eyes and ears to the case. It'll help people question, was this man really guilty? Or was this just a way for them to hurry up and close the case? If you're an attorney, investigator, or legal academic with post-conviction or appellate experience, contact us to review the record, and you can provide expert insight. Support our advocacy so we can obtain transcripts, court records, and expert analysis necessary for a fair review of this case and any of the other cases that we've already handled. Amplify verified facts. The lack of an evidentiary hearing and the documented high school graduation deserves scrutiny. When the evidence of innocence is right in front of you, why do we continue to convict innocent people while the real perpetrator is still walking free on the streets? You guys have to understand, your voice, your share, and your support can push this case and any other case towards a real day in court. Justice isn't just a feeling that we have. It's a process that is protected by the Constitution. When that process is denied and a person's constitutional rights are violated, the outcome must be challenged. We cannot continue to allow the prosecutor and judges to get away with just closing a case and putting innocent people behind bars. Your voice matters. Your share matters. This is a community effort. Tune in next week as we finish the interview with Scott Barmore, so you can hear what he's been up to since he's been incarcerated. Not only is he bettering his life, he's bettering other people's lives as well. He's turned a negative into a positive. All he needs is his day in court to prove that he didn't do this. Let's help him get that day in court. I want to give a special shout out to Veterans Alliance again for sponsoring this episode, and to JP Verse of Versefire Records for the music you hear at the beginning and at the end of the show. Thank you guys so much for your support. It really is appreciated. Tune in next week, and as always, stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay hopeful. Question everything and don't believe every narrative that is put out there. Because at the end of the day, nobody deserves to be wickedly judged.